All right, hello. My name is Alex. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Champ Select podcast. I'm going to be doing a commentary here over just one of the first matches from a recent Giant Slayer tournament. I figure that seems like one of the better things to look at. A quick note before we get started. My particular microphone, my audio quality is probably lower, or it should be much lower than my more permanent setup. I'm on the road right now, so my audio will be a little better for the tournament. Also, my co-commentator bailed at the last minute, so unfortunately, I think I'm going to be on my own for this one, but I don't think I'll mind too much. We ought to be able to get through it either way, so I think let's just get into the match. So it looks like we're starting with Swim here playing Poros against Ezreal Draven. So Poros is one of the decks that's really kind of burst onto the scene lately, pretty much entirely piloted in the hands of Swim, obviously, one of the more prominent streamers we see in the area. Ez Karma is one of the decks that has really impressed me, actually, lately. I think before really the meta shift is fully happening, Ez Karma was really establishing itself as one of the better control decks. It's a personal favorite of mine. I really like the playstyle. It feels great to be able to just kind of sit around and, just know that you're going to win eventually. It's like a really nice feeling to just be able to watch your opponent, just be able to click the pass button over and over again. I love clicking pass. It's like my favorite thing in this game. It's so sick. Eye of the Dragon is absolutely nonsense. One of the best cards in the format right now. I think it's just if it goes unchecked, it can single-handedly take over almost any game. So it's really a strong option. I didn't quite see what keyword our Poro has this turn. Looks like we're just going to start with a burst past Poro snacks. That seems like a pretty good choice to start here. Swim's hand is pretty optimal. It's lacking a lot of the power cards that this deck's looking for. Fabled Poro or Borealis. Poro snacks is incredibly important to the package, but it isn't going to do it alone. And, Poro Cannon will help a little bit, but these small elusive Poros is really not the best plan against Ez Karma. I do like the fact that Swim is taking his time to not play them out too early, to maybe get a Poro snack off before he gets those smaller Poros out to make sure they don't get cleaned up by like a static shock or something. Over on the Ez Karma side, the one of Health Potion in the hand here for Filthy Gamer Weeb. Health Potion is one of those cards that I have been on that piece of tech for a long time in Ez Karma. It's I think I got on it originally from an Expedition draft where I just ended up with a random Health Potion in my Expedition bucket and with Karma, and I thought it was like the worst card, but I picked the packet anyway because it was pretty good for some other cards. And then like on turn 10 I like healed 6 and I was like, hold on, this is like really good. And I've been pretty fond of playing one of Health Potion for a very long time. I think I even remember talking about that on the podcast on the earlier side of the in the early days, back when you could play Karma control decks. All right, so we got Regeneration on our Poro here for Swim. Regeneration feels like probably one of the better ones against Ez Karma. It forces him to deal with it all in one turn, but in reality, the thing is just not... it's not that big, and most of the time, this Poro is going to die in one turn anyway. Regeneration is still probably among the better possible keywords that it could have, so probably not feeling too bad about this. It's nice that it's going to fog the Mystic Shot that Ezreal will make, or at least in theory, it'll stop by fog. That's an old term. I just mean sort of negate the innate Mystic Shot unless he has another one. Unfortunately, we can see here he does have another one. Thermal Beam and another Mystic Shot here. Oh, it actually looks like the stream is a little bit delayed on that side. So we actually drew the Nopify off the Shadow Assassin, Mystic Shot off the Ezreal, of course. Swim here. I wonder if he's just going to try and hold up some spells. Yeah. The pass here burns the Mystic Shot. Filthy Gamer Weeb doesn't have enough mana to try to commit on that particular turn, at least not to try and commit through any interaction. So he's okay to just let the Mystic Shot go. I agree with that choice. I think that's one of the things that as Karma players kind of struggle to do, is to sort of just like let the Mystic Shot go away. It's okay to not play that Mystic Shot, I think. the whole point of this deck is just to kind of survive for long enough. So if that Mystic Shot is going to be worth more as a tempo for your opponents not playing creatures and like burning a lot of mana, that's a really good use of Ezreal's Mystic Shot. You don't even have to cast it for it to be effective, I don't think. All right, so thinking a little bit about the state of the game here. Swim's establishing a lot of threats, and I'm a little surprised that we still haven't seen any spells come out from Filthy Gamerweeb. If I was him, I'd be heavily considering ripping off a Mystic Shot here sooner rather than later so that I could maybe cast a Thermogenic Beam if I needed to. But it looks like he's more content to just try and hold up probably double Concussive Palm. If I'm imagining that's probably what's going on here. Line up a trade. Wow, no spells. This is an interesting choice from Filthy Gamerweeb. It's undervaluing his life total pretty. He's getting hit for a lot here by casting no spells. I think not even casting the Mystic Shot is very aggressive. I think Swim really has to just say okay here. I don't think he can afford to try and open up a spell war here. It's easier to say that with the hand cams, of course, but man, it just feels like there's so much that can go wrong. Like if you just cast one spell, it feels like a lot of the time here you're going to go from dealing 9 damage to dealing like 4 or less. If our opponent decides that now's the time to rattle off a couple spells, but really it feels like there aren't too many. I think that there would be. But I think Swim eventually comes to the right choice here. Just says, okay, save our spells to fight another battle. That's a big part about these decks, I think, too, is making sure that you're using your spells in the correct way. Winning the wars that matter, really, with that's Karma, and I suppose with Poros, because you can't fight every war in Legends of Runeterra. It's really hard to... I mean, you basically just can't fight every war. You're going to have to lose some. So I think it's a big skill to be able to try and figure out when you should and should not be trying to win a particular war with your opponent. So I like Swim's choice here. That's not the war that matters this game. We're going to find something else to fight over. This is a pretty rough spot now for Swim. So I think we've probably just got to line up a Poro block on Ezreal. It seems kind of ridiculous to do anything else. Then we have a choice to make about whether or not we want to do anything about this 2-1 with life link or lifesteal, or if we just want to go ahead and get hit by it. It feels like we're probably just going to get hit by it, I think. It's probably not worth a spell to save ourselves from losing 2 life and our opponent gaining 2 life, though we are really running out of gas very quickly. So it feels quite a bit like we maybe need to try and win the game on the next turn, because it really is not getting better for us from here unless we spike pretty much exactly Aurora Borealis off the top of our deck here. Tough choice here for Swim. It feels like he's in a really hard spot with a somewhat suboptimal draw, I would say. A lot of the cards that aren't really great in this matchup, this 2/2 elusives, they're all right, but they usually aren't going to be fast enough to really get the job done, and more importantly, not resilient enough to the multitude of removal spells out of the Ezreal Karma deck. So looks like we're really going for it here on Swim's side. So the Fury of the North line is definitely an interesting one. It really opens himself up to Will of Ionia, Concussive Palm. Unfortunately, we see both of those in our opponent's hand for Swim here. I really don't hate the line that much. It feels like your opponent would have cast a Concussive Palm if he had one last turn. So I don't hate that. I really don't hate... I don't know. It does feel like our opponent could have Will of Ionia, I suppose, is the only thing. But it does feel like we needed to kind of make a stand to try and prevent our opponent from being able to block on the next turn as well. This game is quickly falling out of reach, so I really don't hate the choice to just kind of try and make something happen. So from here, things feel really hard if you're Swim. Looking at our opponent's hand, or Filthy Gamerweeb's hand here, if you're Swim, It's actually not that good. Like, if Swim could see his hand, he'd actually probably be quite happy with what's going on, because Filthy Gamer Weeb's hand is really not that good. Double Will of Ionia is just not a good matchup for it. The Concussive Palm is all right, but at the same time, we're still really in danger of getting run over by some more cheap units. So I think Filthy Gamer Weeb is really hoping to try and find a Karma before turn 10, namely, and really just removal spells in the meantime. Like Deep Meditation would go a long way. We have a lot of mana, not a lot of spells we can spend it on. We're probably just going to have to start casting Will of Ionias to protect our life total relatively soon. Swim feels the pressure so much that he just has to pass. Of course, he can't, that's an easy pass back looking at Filthy Gamer Weeb's hand. Of course, Swim can't see that, so I totally get it. Oh, he spiked the Deep Meditation off the top. That's the best draw on the deck, I think. What did you get? What did you draw? Another Thermo Beam, Mystic Shot. Wow. 2 great cards off the top of the deck here. Just absolute perfect draw steps. So I think Filthy Gamer Weeb went from a favorite to a large favorite very quickly. Though Swim's got a pretty good troll chant here. We're going to be able to save our Poro, make sure Ezreal can't get another thing. Very good. I think we're going to see the Thermogenic Beam come down here from Mr. Gamer Weeb. Go ahead and blast one of the 4 toughness units. Shoot the elusive one. Seems like a good choice to me. Swim's deciding whether or not he wants to fight over this. I think he does need to at this point. I think the 3/4 elusive is too important to his plan. It's the only creature that's outsizing Ezreal. Ezreal is probably pretty close to flipping at this point. He must be at 5 now, probably. Yeah, 5 now. Kindly Tavern Keeper off the top. Reasonable draw. Lets us heal up our thing so it doesn't get Mystic Shot. Oh, which, he drew right off the top, so just in time, actually. This attack looks pretty good, actually, here from Swim's side. Looking at Filthy Gamer Weeb's hand, we can see that it's really not going to go so well. But if I was Swim, I would feel all right about my chances here. Of course, Gamer Weeb, no cards in hand for Swim. He gets the green light. All his removal spells are going to do exactly what he wants them to do, which is just one of the best feelings there is in Legends of Runeterra. Your opponent can't do anything. They have no mana or no cards or whatever, and you just get to do the thing. It's so nice. Ooh, just ripping the Thermo Beam for 7. Interesting. I like that choice, to be honest. Swim's attack went from being reasonable to just non-existent. From here, the game feels really over. That's one of our better draws, a 2/3 that'll make us another guy. Another Ezreal off the top. Oh boy. Filthy Gamer Weeb still looking for a Karma to try and really wrap things up, though I suspect that this Ezreal is going to get the job done. Fabled Poro. One of the best cards in the deck. One of the big additions to this deck, really. This will be our first time we get to see it. It's going to grant every Poro on Swim's side of the battlefield a random keyword. Unfortunately, his Poro army is being quickly deleted, I hate to say. So Fabled Poro, despite the fact that it's quite large, and in fact rather in charge, I don't think it's going to be quite enough to really get this going. Ezreal making quick work of their life total. I don't love playing this Poro after we saw the Mystic Shot here. I think I would have just played it. It's, some amount of the time you're going to get tough on your 2/2. It feels really relevant. That's the best, 2 of the best draws in our deck. We're still in Aurora Borealis short, but man, it still feels like it's just not even going to be enough. Ooh, Time Trick off the top for Filthy Gamer Weeb. Excellent addition to the deck. We don't get to see the cards he's choosing from. Some of the best options here. Karma, I think, would be the best card in the deck, without a doubt. Oh, well, yeah, we're seeing it. Okay, so he's deciding between Karma and Static Shock. So Static Shock is pretty good here. Our opponent can attack, obviously, though I think we just can spend this turn just playing a couple removal spells. Take the Karma, and then on his turn, we're just going to cast like Will of Ionia this turn, and we'll be totally fine. Looks like Gamer Weeb agrees. Wow, Swim not even going to make the attack this time. Makes sense. I mean, the attack really is quite garbage. Yeah, Gamer Weeb's had enough of it. Time to just fling 5 points at him. Absolutely. Looks like both players well aware that this one is pretty much in the books here, so I'm going to take another draw step off the top, though I don't suspect we're going to be seeing anything more than an attack here. And some lethal spells on the stack. Static Shock, yep, that's a lethal one. Oh, that's very lethal. Holy. The BM stacks? No. All right, so game number one here for Filthy Gamer Weeb. In this format, each player needs to win with both of their decks. So that means that we're not going to be seeing any more Ezreal Karma from Filthy Gamer Weeb. We are going to be seeing more Poros from Swim. So let's go ahead and fast forward to the next game. See what our players decide to select. This is one of the great things about watching a VOD, is we don't have to wait for the in-game time. So it looks like Swim's taking a look at Lysandra Talia from his opponent. So we're seeing Turbo Thralls here. A very cool deck from that's been popularized more recently. One of the more exciting decks, in my opinion, from the more recent meta with the Zirelia and Thresh Nasus. I'm a big fan of the explosive playstyle. It feels really cool to just make a bunch of 8/8s and then attack with them. It feels kind of cheating sometimes. Looking at the hands here, I'm agreeing with the mulligan choices from Swim. These cards seem pretty irrelevant in the matchup. We just want as much pressure as possible. Over on Filthy Gamer Weeb's side, he mulliganed a Blighted Ravine, which I thought was a little interesting. Preservationist just to get shipped right back to us. And we went ahead and kept the Avalanche. Avalanche, of course, definitely going to be one of the better cards in this matchup, I bet. Gamer Weeb is wishing that he had a Blighted Ravine instead of this Preservationist, but alas, what can you do? This Rite of Negation also looks quite bad in this matchup, unfortunately. The Frozen Thrall off the top, though, is definitely the best card in the deck to have on turn one. It's actually shocking how good Frozen Thrall on turn one is out of this deck. It's an incredibly scary 1-mana card out of that deck, because, boy, their turn ones, their average go-off turn is so much faster. They usually go off on turn 4. 5 is usually the absolute latest turn with like Draklorn Inquisitor, with Frozen Thrall on turn 1. And when they don't have that, it often feels like you're going to have to play a lot of time in a bottles and Clockwork Curators and things like that to be able to get the later Lysandra or Draklorn Inquisitor Thrall tombs down enough to actually be able to impact the game with them. So make no mistake, those 1-mana cards off the top of the deck were a really big part of this draw from Filthy Gamer Weeb, and I expect that we're going to see some amount of accelerators come down here from him. Gamer Weeb, with the open pass, even with the Preservarium, I love this play. Keep the Avalanche up, see if our opponent's going to commit anything more into it. Swim, of course, going to commit another 2/3. He's not falling for this. The oldest trick in the book. He's been around for too long to fall for that one, I think. I expect to see the Preservarium here from Gamer Weeb at this point. Indeed, we will. Avalanche, no good here. Avalanche is one of the cards that is not that great in this matchup. It is really good. It feels necessary, but it's shocking how often it misses, I guess is really what I mean. Like, by the time it can be a blowout, but by the time the Poros deck has Porosnax and other Poro buff cards, it can feel like you really don't have a lot of targets. Now, looking at Swim's hand, he has correctly identified that he needs to play the more resilient units first, and he's left the elusive Poros in his hand, and he is yet to Poro Cannon anything. I suspect we're probably going to be iterativing, improvementing one of these 2/3s as well. At this point, we're probably going to commit one of our 2/2s to the board. It just seems a little too inefficient to not. We still have our Porosnax up as well, which is definitely a big deal. Unfortunately, our Poro will still die to the Avalanche, but we're going to get a really big hit in here if our opponent goes for an Avalanche, so it seems pretty promising. Speaking of promising, Filthy Gamer Weeb with a promising future off the top. Going to try to let him double up on these countdown effects. Still looking for more accelerants, though, is Filthy Gamer Weeb. Seems a little low on those. Filthy Gamer Weeb deep into the tank here, debating whether or not this Avalanche is better than Lysandra. It's a really close call. Or just go ahead and casting the promising future. I don't know what I think about this choice. This seems a little aggressive to me. It feels like we're just going to take way too much damage with this play most of the time here. And yeah, we're getting really hit for it. It's a lot of damage. We're not dead, obviously. We've got our Preservarium coming off countdown here, which is very good. Kindly Tavern Keeper, great draw. Unfortunately, we can't play it and the Lysandra, though Lysandra plus Avalanche does seem pretty reasonable here. Preservationist definitely going to bring it down quite a lot, so we're going to establish a relatively fast clock here, but is it going to be fast enough to deal with all of these elusive threats from Swim? Because it really doesn't look like it. Iterative improvements too, man. Yeah, this is going to be really tough to come back from for Filthy Gamer Weeb. I think that it's far too likely that we're just going to have an open attack here for well over lethal on Swim's turn here. If Filthy Gamer Weeb got to attack on the turn that his 8/8s came down, it would feel a lot better. I think like he would have 2 8/8s, get to attack for a clean 20 points of damage. Obviously, Swim would have to make some blocks, kill a couple things. They're probably the things that would get blocked anyway, but it would feel at least a little better. As is, this just feels like there's really not much hope here for Filthy Gamer Weeb. It feels like he's been sufficiently overwhelmed by this army of Poros. Is Swim thinking about casting Poro Cannon here to replace a unit with an elusive one? That seems interesting. I mean, I suppose these two units are basically irrelevant at this point, and we really actually don't have that much damage. So I actually think that's a pretty good choice here from Swim. I actually quite like it. It feels pretty bad, though. I think we're supposed to get rid of Fabled Poro and then replace our 2/3 with it. I really don't think that we should start by playing Fabled Poro next turn. I really don't think we can do that. I think it's way better to keep the Troll Chant, though I suppose that anything that is dealing with our Poros is probably frostbiting it. It isn't really doing damage. Interesting choice on whether we're supposed to block here. It doesn't really seem relevant. To be honest, we're either going to find a lethal attack here or we aren't. And if we don't find one, we're going to be in deep trouble. So, all right, here we go. We got a lot of elusive Poros. Can they get the job done? So, current Filthy Gamer Weeb is going to need to deal with 2 of these Poros because of the 2 with 3 power. Of course, he is unable to do so. And Swim takes game number 2. So we're going to a deciding game number 3 here in this set. And once again, you just blast right into the next game. So we've got Sivir Zed versus Lysandra Talia. This Zed Sivir deck, one of my favorite new decks from the new expansion. Our recent podcast episode, we talked a lot about Zed Sivir. It's being adapted into Akshan Sivir as we speak, and it's just one of my absolute favorite decks. It feels like a true tempo archetype, at least some of the builds do, and I think it's really one of the only Legends of Runeterra decks that really has that tempo feel, where it feels like you're just playing more efficient cards than your opponent. And because the spells cost more mana than the creatures, innately, the deck has so much pressure with its early creatures because it plays the best creatures that it forces you to react to it before it has to react to you. And as soon as you do that, you fall behind in mana, and it's the best deck in the game at pressuring you when you're behind on mana, because as soon as you spend all your mana in combat, boom, my Ruin Runner is now attacking for 16 points of damage with Trample or with Overwhelm, right? It really can just kill you out of nowhere like that. Another favorite part of mine of this deck is the Vulnerable plus Quick Attack package. It feels so strong to be able to like Rockhopper on an empty board, and then when you play Zed with the Rockhopper, oh man, if Swim had the attack token here, he would have went Rockhopper. And then on turn 3, he would have opened it up with Zed. And then your opponent is just in this complete miserable spot, because they either play a unit and then it gets vulnerable and eaten by Zed, or they don't play a unit and then they take 9 or more and they flip their Zed. So it just feels like the Vulnerable plus Quick Attack lets you win early game for free a lot of the time, and it's one of the strongest parts of the deck. We see here it's giving this Lysandra vulnerable, very, very powerful. I'm sure that Swim's very happy. He's probably quite curious as to why GamerWeeb just went ahead and played it out into the vulnerable. There aren't a lot of creatures in that deck, and it does need landmarks to count down sooner rather than later, so he might not suspect that anything in particular is afoot here. Just your normal, everyday Lysandra with vulnerable. Got to get that landmark out there. Shapestone, pretty good draw. Very efficient in this deck. We could potentially be giving our Zed double strike here. If we pull the Lysandra with Rock Hopper, we could give Zed +1/+0 and double strike and do a bunch of damage to our opponent. We could, with the Shapestone too, I mean, we could be hitting for 3 + 4 doubled to 8, and then plus another 6, holy 14, and then we're flipping, so 14 plus, I mean, that's 20. Holy moly. I love this deck. He's just got to decide whether or not his opponent can interact with it. There are absolutely cards in the opponent's deck that will interact with this. In fact, we see one of them in our opponent's hand right now. It's Three Sisters. But there's not that many of them, so I quite like going for it. And one of the worst case scenarios is that your Zed gets frostbitten, and it's not that bad. I think we really should play the Shapestone here, put our opponent to the test. It seems like our opponent might have to just go ahead and cast the Three Sisters here anyway to Frostbiter's Zed. Or let me correct myself. Our opponent certainly will have to do that if they have it. So this is definitely a hedge, but I still think I would have just went for it, seen what my opponent had to see. This is definitely a much safer choice, though, however, because when our Zed gets frostbitten here, we'll be able to give it more power and then make sure it still flips, which is actually very, very good, especially giving it the 3rd point of toughness. That's huge against these Freljord control decks that almost always deal damage in increments of 2. Another big part of this trade is that the Lysandra is actually taking the 2 points of damage. So if GamerWeeb tries to play an Avalanche or a Blighted Ravine, it's going to result in his own Lysandra dying. So that's not great. Your Swim, absolutely playing like a madman here. Going with the Entomb, that makes a lot more sense than the Flash Freeze, the more that I think about it. So excellent choice by GamerWeeb. The Entomb here feels like we're probably just going to have to say okay for Swim. 3 extra damage doesn't feel that relevant. All of our creatures are going to go away, which definitely sucks, but we have the tools to rebuild. Rune Runner's one of the best cards to play on curve. It just feels so huge and so hard to deal with on turn 5, especially for decks that just don't have that many spells to really be able to trigger the spell shield and ping it off easily. Like, there's no Mystic Shot in this deck. Pretty much the only way we can get rid of spell shield is with Avalanche, and that's not a trivial. If you can't clean other things up with that Avalanche, it really feels hard to weave that in to your curve, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here earlier when I mentioned that tempo strategy and how good this deck is at punishing you for making the first move. I mean, we saw it here. If Filthy Gamerweeb had tried to use the Flash Freeze instead of the Entomb, right? Swim would have been able to Shapestone and get the Zed flip. He had to go for the Entomb, which means that, he spent 6 mana. He's not going to be able to deal with the Zed without another thing, which actually he did figure this out. It looks like he managed to. Okay, so the players don't know. Okay, so the way this works is the countdowns trigger from left to right in the order of the player with the attack token and then the player without. So the attack token is going to go to Swim, and then the Zed's going to come back, and then Filthy Gamerweeb's things will count down, if I'm correct. I believe that's how it works. So I do believe that Zed will die here because it did not flip, which is quite unfortunate for Swim. Well played to Filthy Gamerweeb, managing to find a way to weave himself out of this. Still think he's going to have a hell of a time dealing with just Ruin Runner, honestly. If we play Ruin Runner, Sivir, we've got so much more gas in the tank here if you're Swim. Uh, you know, obviously these thralls are coming down soonish though. So like we do need to kill him before these 8/8s come into play, because between Promising Future, Preservationist, and Talia, and Time in a Bottle, our opponent's going to be able to flip it quite quick. Actually, our opponent's going to be able to put these 8/8s into play very soon. All right, so let's see if I'm right. Zed comes back. Yes, then the Ravine goes off. Definitely new. You can see him thinking out his VM text. You love to see it. Okay, second shaped stone. Second shaped stone. Excuse me. Off the top here for Swim. Seems like a good one to me. It's going to be able to help us sneak in some extra points of damage. We could use really like to see like a Flurry of Fists or Twin Disciplines would be really good here too. If you're Swim, this one feels this Rockhopper feels quite good. It's going to prevent our opponent from being able to play Draklorn Inquisitor or Preservationist really before combat. The Preservationist before combat, we might still have to see it. He might just feel like he's just too behind to not do it. It feels like our opponent could have made an 8/8 like this turn, with Time in a Bottle plus Preservationist, but looks like Filthy Gamer Weeb just thinks that he's not going to be able to win the game with just one 8/8. He's going to be able to need to have a little bit bigger payoff than that, and I think I agree with him, but he's going to have to get there, so it's going to be interesting to see. It's I'm curious whether he's going to go for the full Wombo combo with Promising Future plus Talia, and then try and summon many 8/8s, or if he's just going to settle for the 2. Because honestly, 2 might not be enough to win here. If the Sivir flips, it's going to be pretty hard for the 2 to actually be enough. So this is pretty sad. We're 1 point of damage off of lethal here. We're not going to be able to flip our Sivir. Oh, so close. But ultimately, I think we're just gonna have to hit him for the 11 points here. Doesn't seem worth it to cast either of these Shapestones right now. I'm curious whether it's worth it to have the 3/1 kill the 3, trade with the 3/3, or whether it's better to have our Sivir try and eat the 5/3, or the 3/3, excuse me. This way makes the avalanches in Filthy Gamer Weeb's hands really bad, but the other way means that, our opponent's at 2 higher life, but we have a 3/1 in play, so it means our opponent maybe has to play the avalanche. So I think it's an interesting choice either way. I think I probably would have eaten the 3/3 with the Sivir, but I definitely think there's quite a bit of merit to the other way. Your opponent's life total matters a lot right now, so here's the Preservationist. Looks like Gamerweeb decided he's not going to have time for the Talia thing. Just needs to put the power into play now. He's going to get attacked for way too much damage at the start of the next turn. I think he's right in that assessment. Now, it's going to be pretty rough, though, for Gamerweeb, because I think that this Sivir is going to be flipping rather soon. Let's see, it was at 9 last turn, and then we hit for 14 points. So it's going to be all the way up to 20-something. 27? Math's hard. 14 plus 9. 25. There we go. 23. Man, God, I'm bad at math. All right, 8/8's coming down. Got to get some attacks in with him. It's hard to even attack with him, to be honest. It feels like it can just go so badly, but I mean, it's not like it's going to get any better on attacks, I don't think, when our opponent gets to attack here on Filthy Gamer Weeb's side. So I think you kind of just got to rip it in there and see what your opponent has to see. If they've got it all, you're probably going to lose, but it's not going to get better for you when his board has quick attack and potentially overwhelm and double strike and all this manner of bad things for you. So I think you're just supposed to force the issue now. Unfortunately for him, Swim does have pretty good hand to deal with this between the Spirit's Refuge and the Shapestone. So for a mere 5 mana, he's going to be able to eat an 8/8 with his Rune Runner and gain some life in the process. So stay at 20, which is quite good for him. Swim definitely doesn't want to get one of the 8/8s with the Vulnerable because he doesn't know which one he's going to be able to kill. So correct choice with the Vulnerable here from Swim. Is Filthy Gamerweeb thinking about attacking with only one 8/8? That would be quite strange. If I was Filthy Gamerweeb, I think I'd be sending the team in. Wow, just one 8/8. What could be the reason for this? Why on earth would he only send one 8/8? So, thinking about the cards that Swim could have, man, maybe it's so that he can't flip Sivir this turn so easily. Actually, that makes quite a bit of sense, I suppose. Make it so that he's going to have to spend an extra turn to flip Sivir. If I'm Swim here, I'm just taking 8. Whatever, I'm over it. I don't think there's anything wrong with just taking 8. It doesn't really feel like we need to do anything. We can't kill it. We don't have enough mana. So I think I'd just take the 8. Move on my turn. We've still got a very promising open attack here on our next turn. And I think we're going to want the Spirit's Refuge to combo with our Sivir next turn because it can flip and give our whole board barrier and lifesteal, which seems absolutely absurd. So this plays fine from Swim still. Protect your life total, get some damage on the 8/8. Like both those things are very relevant. It spends our mana. That's very good. So I don't hate this line. I think I would have done it a slightly different way, but certainly not bad. This deck is very hard is another thing. So it's a lot of players take a lot of very different lines, divergent lines at different points, and it feels kind of like all roads lead to Rome. To be honest, like feels like for the most part, you're probably going to end up in a situation that's good for you and be able to squeak out lethal some way. At least that's mostly been my experience. So, not to say that there's no way to play the game better. There obviously are always going to be ways to play the game more efficiently. But at the end of the day, I think that it's one of the decks that's definitely the best at executing plan A. It doesn't feel like you have to go to plan B too often if you understand what I'm saying. Like it's just going to kill you dead. And every card you play is going to kill your opponent dead in one way or another. So, pretty much no matter which way you play them, you're going to kill your opponent dead, or you aren't. And that's kind of the nature of this deck. Definitely one of my favorites. Swim putting lethal onto the stack here with Shapestone. Filthy Gamerweeb, no way to deal with it. And Swim's going to take the set 2-1 here over Filthy Gamerweeb. Good luck to Swim in the rest of this tournament, and we hope to see how these Poros shape up in the later brackets. Anyway, I want to thank you for listening to this. Sorry it wasn't quite as professional as I wish it could have been. Been traveling a lot. But anyway, I will hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.